William Carter stood at the gleaming observation deck of Mars' Central Spaceport, his polished shoes reflecting the red sunlight streaming through the reinforced glass dome. At 45, he had everything money could buy, including the rare quantum-powered chronometer strapped to his wrist, one of only 5 ever made in the solar system. The spaceport buzzed with its usual mix of wealthy tourists, merchants, and workers. The air smelled of recycled oxygen and expensive coffee from the nearby cafe. Carter checked his watch again, admiring how the quantum core pulsed with a soft blue glow. In 12 minutes, he would meet with the Mars Colony Board to discuss his company's new terraforming project. "Excuse me, sir." A worker in a gray uniform pushed past with a cleaning cart, forcing Carter to step aside. As he moved, something small and quick bumped into him. The impact wasn't hard, but he felt a tug at his wrist. The chronometer was gone. Through the crowd, he caught a glimpse of his thief, a small girl with dark skin, wearing clothes that had seen better days. She moved like water through the crowd, slipping between legs and around luggage with practiced ease. "Stop, security." Carter's first instinct was to call for help, but something made him hesitate. Maybe it was the way the girl moved, not like a professional thief, but like someone desperate. Instead of waiting for the guards, he began to run after her himself. The girl darted down an emergency stairwell, her footsteps echoing off the metal steps. Carter followed, his expensive suit already starting to show signs of sweat. The stairwell led them deeper into the spaceport's lower levels, where the pristine white walls gave way to industrial gray metal and exposed pipes. "Wait," he called out, but the girl didn't slow down. They passed maintenance workers who barely looked up from their tasks, used to seeing people from the upper levels avoiding the crowded main elevators. The chase led them through a maze of service corridors. Carter was surprised to find himself remembering his childhood, when he used to run through the back streets of Boston with his friends. Before the money, before the success, before everything became about status and image. The girl was fast, but Carter's longer legs helped him keep pace. He watched as she squeezed through a half-closed pressure door into one of the older sections of the spaceport. Warning signs marked the area as limited access, maintenance only. The air here felt different, less processed, with hints of machine oil and old metal. The lighting flickered, creating shadows that danced across the walls. Carter's breaths came in heavy gasps now, his lungs burning from the chase. Ahead, the girl made a mistake. She turned down a corridor that ended in a sealed maintenance hatch. As she realized her error and spun around, Carter finally got a good look at her face. She couldn't have been more than 12 years old. Her eyes were wide with fear, but there was something else there too: determination. She clutched the quantum chronometer to her chest like it was the most precious thing in the world. "Please," she whispered, backing up against the wall. "I need it." Carter slowed his approach, trying to catch his breath. Up close, he could see that her clothes weren't just old. They were patched together from different materials, the kind of outfit someone would wear when they had no other choice. Her shoes were medical booties, the kind given out free at colony clinics. "That watch," Carter said between breaths, "is worth more than most people make in a lifetime." He tried to keep his voice gentle, despite his racing heart. "Why did you take it?" The girl's eyes darted to the sides, looking for an escape route. Finding none, she seemed to make a decision. "My brother," she said, her voice barely audible. "He's sick. The doctor said he needs a quantum power source for his med unit, or he'll—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Carter noticed something he hadn't seen before: old burn scars on her hands, the kind you get from repairing hot machinery without proper protection. This wasn't a professional thief or even an opportunistic pickpocket. This was something else entirely. Before he could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the corridor. Red emergency lights started flashing, and a computerized voice announced, "Warning. Pressure anomaly detected in Section 7B. All personnel evacuate immediately." The girl's eyes widened in recognition. "No, no, no," she muttered. "Not now." Carter looked back the way they had come. The pressure doors were beginning to seal automatically, designed to contain any potential hull breach. They had maybe 30 seconds before they'd be trapped in this section. The girl seemed frozen in place, looking down at the chronometer in her hands. To Carter's surprise, she suddenly held it out to him. "Take it," she said, her voice shaking. "I need to get back. My brother." Carter made a split-second decision that would change multiple lives forever. Instead of grabbing the watch, he grabbed the girl's hand. "Show me the fastest way out of here," he said. "We'll go together." She hesitated for just a moment before nodding. "This way." She pulled him toward what looked like a solid wall, then pressed a hidden panel to reveal a maintenance shaft. The workers used these to move between sections quickly. They crawled through the narrow space as the alarms continued to blare. The girl moved with the confidence of someone who had used these passages many times before. Behind them, they could hear the heavy thunk of pressure doors sealing. They emerged into a dimly lit corridor just as the final warning sounded. The girl pulled Carter through one last door, and they tumbled into a wider hallway just as the pressure seals activated behind them. As they sat there catching their breath, Carter noticed something about the chronometer still clutched in the girl's hand. The quantum core was pulsing faster than normal, reacting to something in their surroundings. "What's your name?" he asked. She looked at him warily before answering. "Maya." "Maya," he repeated. "I'm William Carter, and I think you better tell me everything about your brother and why you need a quantum power source." Maya looked down at the chronometer, then back at Carter. For the first time, a tiny spark of hope appeared in her eyes. "You'll listen." Carter nodded, already knowing that his meeting with the Mars Colony Board would have to wait. Something much more important had just landed in his lap, something that would force him to confront the vast divide between his privileged world and the harsh reality of life in the colony's lower levels. "I'll listen," he said. "But first, let's get somewhere safer. I have a feeling this is going to be quite a story." Maya stood up, still holding the chronometer close. As she led Carter deeper into the lower levels of the colony, neither of them realized that this chance encounter would end up changing not just their lives, but the entire social structure of Mars Colony itself. Maya led William Carter through a maze of service tunnels that seemed to descend forever into the bowels of Mars Colony. The pristine upper levels where Carter usually spent his time felt like a different world now. Here, the walls were stained with rust and moisture, and makeshift electrical lines hung overhead like twisted vines. "Watch your step," Maya warned, pointing to patches of ice on the metal floor. The temperature dropped noticeably as they went deeper, and Carter could see his breath in the dim light. The quantum chronometer continued to pulse in Maya's hand, its blue glow providing extra illumination. Carter noticed how she carefully stepped over certain floor panels while avoiding others entirely. She moved with the confidence of someone who had mapped every safe path through this underground maze. "How long have you been living down here?" Carter asked, ducking under a low-hanging pipe. Maya glanced back at him. 2 years, since the ships brought us from Earth. We were supposed to go to the new family units in Sector 4, but," she trailed off, focusing on navigating around a particularly dangerous-looking electrical junction. They passed through what appeared to be an abandoned hydroponics bay. Dead plants still sat in their containers, their withered forms casting strange shadows on the walls. Carter saw evidence of people living here. Makeshift beds hidden behind old growing tanks, children's drawings stuck to walls with industrial tape. "The Colony Authority doesn't know about these places," Maya explained, noting Carter's interest. "They sealed off this section after the Great Dust Storm 3 years ago, said it wasn't worth fixing." A distant rumble made them both pause. Above them, the massive support structures of Mars Colony creaked and shifted, adjusting to the planet's extreme temperature changes. Carter had read reports about these lower sections, but seeing them firsthand was different. How had he never noticed this hidden world beneath his feet? They turned a corner and came face to face with a group of children playing with what looked like homemade toys, bits of machinery and old computer parts fashioned into crude robots. The kids scattered at the sight of Carter, vanishing into hidden doorways and maintenance shafts like ghosts. "They're not used to seeing people from upside," Maya said quietly. "Most folks from up there pretend we don't exist." Carter felt a weight settling in his chest. He'd made his fortune developing life support systems for Mars Colony, but he'd never considered who might be falling through the cracks of the society he'd helped build. They arrived at what appeared to be a dead end, but Maya pressed her hand against a specific panel, and a hidden door slid open with a hiss. Inside was a large chamber that might once have been a backup water recycling station. Now it had been converted into a living space. Old medical equipment lined one wall, salvaged from who knew where. In the center of the room, a bed was surrounded by quietly humming machinery. On it lay a small boy, maybe 7 years old, connected to various tubes and monitors. "This is my brother, Zane," Maya said, her voice softening. She approached the bed and gently touched his hand. "The flood that took our parents also damaged his lungs. The doctors upside said he needs special treatment, but we couldn't afford it. That's why." She held up the quantum chronometer. The blue pulse from its core matched the weak beeping of Zane's medical monitors perfectly. "The med unit needs a quantum power source to run properly," a new voice said from the shadows. An older woman stepped forward, her gray hair tied back in a practical bun. She wore what might once have been a doctor's coat, now patched and stained with years of use. "I'm Catherine Brown. Once upon a time, I worked in the main colony hospital." Carter recognized her name from medical journals he'd read years ago. "Dr. Brown. But you disappeared 3 years ago." The medical board said. "The medical board," Catherine interrupted, "decided that healthcare should be based on what people could pay, not what they needed." She gestured around the room. "So I found people who needed help more than I needed a license." Carter looked around the room more carefully now. He saw other beds hidden behind makeshift curtains, more children being treated for various ailments. The equipment was old but carefully maintained, held together with skill and determination. "Your quantum chronometer," Catherine explained, "could power our main medical unit for years. With a proper power source, we could save not just Zane, but dozens of other children who need intensive care." Carter walked over to Zane's bed. The boy's breathing was shallow but steady, his small chest rising and falling in rhythm with the machines. The entire setup was ingenious, jury-rigged but functional, a testament to human creativity and resilience. "Why didn't you ask for help?" Carter said, turning to Maya. "My foundation donates millions to colony projects every year." Maya's face hardened. "We tried. Your people said we didn't have the right documents, the right status, said we should go back to Earth." She looked at her brother, "But there's nothing left for us there." Catherine stepped forward. "The system isn't built for people like us, Mr. Carter. We're the ones who fell through the cracks when Earth started flooding. The ones whose papers were lost in the evacuation. The ones who don't show up in your colony's neat statistics." Before Carter could respond, alarms began blaring again. But these were different from the pressure warnings earlier. These were security alarms. "They must have tracked us through the maintenance tunnels," Maya said, panic rising in her voice. "They'll find everyone." Catherine was already moving, pressing buttons on various pieces of equipment. "We need to evacuate. We can't let them find this place." Carter watched as the hidden community sprang into action. Children emerged from hiding places to help disconnect medical equipment. Parents appeared to gather up belongings and supplies. It was a well-practiced routine. These people had done this before. But Zane couldn't be moved quickly. His medical equipment was too delicate, too essential. Maya stood by his bed, torn between the need to flee and the impossibility of leaving her brother. Carter made his second life-changing decision of the day. He pulled out his personal communicator, not the regular colony model, but a direct link to his company's security team. "This is William Carter," he said into the device. "Authorization code Delta 794. I need an immediate security lockdown of maintenance section 12, level B through F. No colony personnel are to enter without my direct approval. Classify it as a corporate research zone." The effect was immediate. The security alarms cut off, replaced by automated announcements declaring the area a restricted corporate zone. Carter turned to the stunned faces around him. "That will hold them off for now," he said. "But we're going to need a better solution." He looked at Maya, still clutching his quantum chronometer. "And I think I have an idea what that might be." Catherine studied his face carefully. "Why would you help us? You're part of the system that put us here." Carter looked around the room, at the faces showing equal measures of hope and suspicion. "Maybe it's time that system changed," he said. "But first, tell me everything. I want to know every gap in the colony's support structure, every failed policy, every person we failed to protect." Maya sat down beside her brother's bed, still holding the chronometer that had started all this. "It's a long story," she said. Carter pulled up an old maintenance crate and sat down. "I got time," he said, "and I think it's a story I need to hear." As the hidden community gathered around, Carter realized that his life had been forever changed by a simple act of theft. The real question was, how many other lives could be changed by what would happen next? Copyright. For the next 2 hours, William Carter sat in the underground shelter as Catherine Brown and the others shared their stories. The makeshift medical bay hummed with quiet activity as children played in corners and parents tended to the sick. The quantum chronometer still pulsed steadily, now properly connected to Zion's medical equipment. Most of us came from the coastal regions, Catherine explained, pouring Carter a cup of recycled water from their limited supplies. When the waters rose, the evacuation ships were supposed to take us to designated colonies, but somewhere in the chaos, paperwork got lost. People got separated. The system wasn't ready for so many refugees at once. Carter watched as Maya checked her brother's vital signs with practiced care. How many people live down here? He asked. In this section, about 50 families, Catherine said. But there are other pockets throughout the lower levels. We stay in contact when we can, share resources. She gestured to the medical equipment around them. Most of this came from other groups who found out about our little hospital. A small girl ran past, clutching a worn stuffed animal. Carter recognized her as one of the children who had scattered earlier. This time, she paused to look at him curiously before running to help an older boy sort through medical supplies. That's Lily, Maya said, noticing Carter's interest. She lost her parents during the crossing from Earth. The boy is Peter. He takes care of the younger kids, teaches them how to survive down here. Carter pulled out his tablet and began taking notes. Tell me about your daily challenges. What do you need most? Catherine laughed softly. What don't we need? Medicine, proper food, clean water. But mostly, we need recognition. These people don't officially exist in the colony's systems. They can't get jobs, can't send their children to school, can't visit the upper-level hospitals. As if to emphasize her point, the lights flickered. Maya quickly moved to adjust something on her brother's medical unit, compensating for the power fluctuation with practiced ease. The power grid down here is unstable, she explained. That's why we needed your chronometer so badly. Our backup generators can't handle the medical equipment properly. Carter stood up and walked to one of the walls, examining the complex network of jury-rig power cables. This is impressive engineering, he said. Who set this up? Maya did. Catherine said proudly. She has a natural talent for electronics, if she had access to proper schooling. I learned from watching the maintenance crews, Maya added quickly, looking embarrassed. When they fix things upside, sometimes they throw away parts that still work. We collect them. Carter turned back to the room, seeing it with new eyes. Everything here was a testimony to human ingenuity and survival. These people hadn't just fallen through the cracks. They built a whole community in those cracks. Suddenly, his tablet beeped. The corporate security team had sent him an update. Colony authorities were questioning his lockdown order. They wouldn't be able to hold them off much longer without a better explanation. We need to move quickly, Carter said, standing up. I can help, but we need to be smart about this. If we do it wrong, the colony authority might just seal off these levels completely. Catherine nodded grimly. It's happened before. 2 years ago, they found a similar community in Sector 6. They welded the doors shut, said it was for structural integrity. No one knows what happened to the people trapped inside. Cart felt his stomach turn. How had he never heard about this? How many decisions had he made in board meetings that had affected these people without him even knowing they existed? First, he said, we need to make this place legal. He started typing on his tablet. I'm going to register this section as a subsidiary research facility of Carter Industries. That will give us time and legal protection while we work on the bigger issues. Maya looked up from her brother's bedside. What bigger issues? Everything, Carter said simply. The colony's registration system, the medical access protocols, the education restrictions. He looked around the room. This isn't just about helping one community. We need to change the whole system. Catherine crossed her arms. People have tried before. The Colony Council won't like it. They'd prefer to pretend we don't exist. It's easier than admitting their perfect society has flaws. They'll like it even less when I threaten to take my company's contracts elsewhere, Carter said firmly. Mars Colony needs my life support systems more than I need their approval. A commotion at the entrance interrupted them. Peter came running in, out of breath. Dr. Brown, the Peterson baby, her fever's getting worse. They need help in Section D. Catherine quickly gathered supplies. Mr. Carter, if you're serious about helping, now's your chance to see what we're really dealing with. Coming? Carter nodded, following Catherine and Maya through another series of hidden passages. As they walked, he began to outline his plan. First, we need to document everyone, carefully protecting their privacy. Then we need to create a legal framework for integrating these communities into the colony proper. He ducked under a low pipe. But most importantly, we need to make sure this never happens again. No more people falling through the cracks. They arrived at another converted space where a young mother cradled a crying infant. The baby's skin was hot to the touch, and her breathing was labored. Catherine immediately went to work, but her expression was worried. "We don't have the right medication for this," she said quietly. "Up in the main hospital, this would be a simple fix, but down here..." Carter pulled out his communicator again. "What do you need?" "Exactly." Catherine listed several medications. Carter sent a message, and within minutes, his personal medical team confirmed they were on their way with the supplies. No questions asked. As they waited, Carter watched Maya help Catherine tend to the baby. These people had built something remarkable here, a community based on mutual support and care, despite having almost nothing. The contrast with the wealthy upper levels of the colony, where people lived in isolated luxury, couldn't be more stark. "You know," Maya said softly, noticing his thoughtful expression, "when I took your watch, I thought you'd just call security. Most people from Upside do." Carter smiled slightly. "I'm not most people, and after today, I'm not the same person I was this morning." The baby's cries had softened to whimpers as Catherine did what she could with their limited supplies. Around them, other community members gathered, offering support to the worried parents. Carter saw the same scene that had played out countless times down here, people helping people, sharing what little they had. His tablet beeped again. His medical team had arrived at the secure entrance he designated. As he went to meet them, Carter's mind was already racing with plans. This hidden community had survived on ingenuity and determination. With proper resources and support, imagine what they could achieve. But first, they had a baby to save. One life at a time, one change at a time, they would build something better. And it had all started because a desperate girl had stolen a watch. Looking back at Maya, who was now comforting the baby's mother, Carter realized that perhaps he wasn't the one doing the saving. Maybe, in their own way, these people were saving him from a life of ignorance about what was happening right beneath his feet. Copy. 1 week after discovering the underground community, William Carter sat in his private office in the upper levels of Mars Colony, surrounded by holographic displays showing data from his investigation. The contrast between his pristine office and the hidden world below felt almost obscene now. "Sir," his assistant's voice came through the intercom, "Dr. Brown and Maya have arrived." Catherine and Maya entered the office, and Carter noticed how out of place they looked among the expensive furnishings. But Maya walked with more confidence now, her head held high. The quantum chronometer still powered her brother's medical unit, but Carter had already ordered 5 more from Earth. "We've been going through the colony's records," Carter began, gesturing to the displays. "The truth is worse than we thought. The Great Atlantic Surge didn't just destroy homes. It destroyed entire systems of record-keeping. Thousands of people were evacuated without proper documentation." Catherine nodded grimly. "We tried to tell the authorities this years ago. Nobody listened." Carter waved his hand, and new images appeared. Maps of Mars Colony's lower levels, with red dots marking known refugee communities. "We've identified at least 12 other groups like yours. Some have been surviving down there for over 5 years. Maya stepped closer to one of the displays, studying it intently. "That section there," she pointed, "we trade with them sometimes. They have people who know how to fix old water recyclers." "Tell them about what you found in the evacuation records," Catherine urged, her face serious. Carter took a deep breath. The colony authorities knew. They knew there were people falling through the cracks during the evacuation, but fixing the problem would have meant admitting they weren't prepared for the crisis, so they chose to ignore it. He brought up another display, this one showing official communications between colony administrators. They created a policy of structural integrity concerns to seal off sections where refugees were gathering. They thought the people would just go away. Maya's hands clenched into fists. But where did they expect us to go? Earth is underwater. The other colonies are full. We had nowhere else. They didn't care. Catherine said softly. It was easier to pretend you didn't exist. Carter stood up and walked to the window. The Martian landscape stretched out below, red and unforgiving. I was part of the problem, he admitted. My company designed the systems that keep this colony running, but we never asked who they were running for. We never looked down. He turned back to them. And now we have proof. Records of every displaced person, every sealed section, every denied request for help, and we're going to use it. Maya looked worried. Won't they just try to stop you? They have a lot of power. Carter smiled. So do I, and unlike them, I'm not afraid to use it. He brought up a new display, plans for a massive renovation project. Carter Industries is launching a new initiative. We're going to retrofit the lower levels, bring them up to code, create proper living spaces, schools, medical facilities. Catherine studied the plans carefully. The Colony Council will fight this. They'll say it's too expensive, too disruptive. Let them, Carter replied. I've already contacted Earth's Refugee Rights Commission. They're very interested in what's been happening here. And I don't think the council wants that kind of attention. Maya walked to another window, looking down at the colony below. What about the other people like us? The ones still hiding? That's where you come in, Carter said. Both of you. Catherine, I want you to lead the medical outreach program. You know these communities, they trust you. We'll provide the resources, you provide the expertise. He turned to Maya. And you? How would you like to go to school? Real school, with proper engineering classes. Maya's eyes widened. But what about Zane? I need to take care of him. Your brother will have the best care available, Carter assured her. But you have a gift for engineering. I've seen your work in the lower levels. With proper training, you could help design systems that work for everyone, not just the wealthy. Catherine put a hand on Maya's shoulder. He's right. You've kept those medical units running with spare parts and determination. Imagine what you could do with real resources. Before Maya could respond, Carter's communicator chimed urgently. He checked the message and his expression darkened. The Colony Council, he said. They're calling an emergency session. Someone warned them what we're planning. What will you do? Catherine asked. Carter straightened his jacket. I'm going to tell them the truth. All of it. And then I'm going to give them a choice. Help us fix this, or watch their perfect society get exposed for what it really is. Maya looked worried. What if they don't choose to help? Then we do it anyway, Carter said firmly. I've already transferred majority control of the lower-level infrastructure to my company. They can't stop us from improving our own property. He gathered his tablets and data chips. The real question is, are you both ready for what comes next? Once we start this, there's no going back. The whole colony will know about the underground communities. Things will change. Catherine squared her shoulders. We've been ready for years. We just needed someone to listen. Maya nodded. All those kids down there, they deserve a chance. Like the chance you're giving me and Zane. Carter headed for the door, Catherine and Maya following. As they walked toward the council chambers, he thought about how much his life had changed in just a week. A stolen watch had opened his eyes to a hidden world, and now he couldn't look away. Whatever happens in there, he said as they reached the council building, remember this, you're not invisible anymore, and you never will be again. The massive doors of the council chamber loomed before them. Behind those doors sat the people who had chosen to ignore the suffering below their feet, but they couldn't ignore it anymore. The truth was coming, carried by a doctor who had never stopped caring, a girl who had dared to steal a watch, and a man who had finally learned to look down instead of up. Carter straightened his shoulders. It was time to make Mars Colony face its shadows. 2 years had passed since that fateful day in the Colony Council chambers. William Carter stood in the newly opened Carter Foundation Medical Center, watching as doctors and nurses moved efficiently through the gleaming halls. The center, built in what was once the abandoned lower levels, now served everyone in Mars Colony, regardless of their status or documentation. Maya, now 14, walked beside him, wearing a student uniform from the Mars Technical Academy. Her brother Zane, healthier than ever, held her hand as they toured the facility. "Remember what this place used to look like?" Maya asked, running her free hand along the smooth wall. "All those rusty pipes and broken lights?" Carter nodded. "Hard to believe it's the same space." He stopped at a window overlooking a large room filled with quantum-powered medical units, each one containing the same technology as his old chronometer. "How are your engineering classes going?" Maya's face lit up. "I'm at the top of my class. Professor Chen says I have a natural understanding of power systems. She wants me to start an advanced project next term." They passed by the emergency ward where Catherine Brown, now the medical center's chief of staff, was training a group of new doctors. Many of them had come from the hidden communities, people who had learned medicine through necessity and were now getting formal training. "Dr. Brown," Carter called out, "how's the new equipment working?" Catherine smiled, excusing herself from her students. "Perfectly. The quantum power grid you installed never fluctuates like the old systems did. We haven't lost a single patient due to equipment failure since we opened." Zane tugged at Maya's sleeve. "Can we go see the garden?" He pointed toward the hydroponics bay, once a dead space of withered plants, now a thriving green area where patients could recover surrounded by life. As Maya took her brother to the garden, Catherine turned to Carter. "Have you seen today's colony statistics?" Carter pulled out his tablet. The screen showed the latest population data for Mars Colony. For the first time in its history, there were no unofficial residents. Everyone had been properly registered, given access to healthcare, education, and housing. "The refugee integration program is working better than we hoped," he said. "The other colonies are starting to copy our model." Catherine watched as a group of children played in the garden, some from the upper levels, others from the former hidden communities, all of them together. "Do you ever regret it? Using your company's influence to force the council's hand?" Carter thought back to that tense council meeting 2 years ago. He had given them their choice: support the integration program voluntarily, or watch as he exposed their deliberate negligence to Earth's media. They had chosen cooperation, though not happily. "Not for a second," he replied. "My only regret is not discovering the truth sooner." A commotion at the center's main entrance drew their attention. A group of newly arrived refugees from Earth's latest flood zones was being welcomed. Carter watched as hospital staff, many of them former hidden community members themselves, guided the newcomers through registration and medical screening. "This is how it should have been from the start," Catherine said softly. Maya and Zane returned from the garden, the boy clutching a fresh tomato he had been allowed to pick. "Mr. Carter," Maya said, "can I show you something?" She led them to her student workspace in the center's engineering lab. On her desk sat a partially assembled device. "It's my project for the science fair. I'm designing a portable version of the quantum power unit, something small enough for emergency medical teams to carry." Carter examined the device with genuine interest. Maya's understanding of quantum technology now rivaled that of his senior engineers. "You've solved the containment issue that was stumping our research team." Maya nodded eagerly. "I remembered how we used to modify power cells in the lower levels. Sometimes, working with limited resources teaches you things that advanced labs miss." Catherine checked her medical scanner. "Speaking of which, Zane's checkup shows everything normal. The new treatment protocol is working perfectly." Zane grinned. "Can I start school next month like the other kids?" "Absolutely," Catherine replied. "You're as healthy as any child in the colony now." Carter's tablet chimed with a message from his office. The final phase of the integration program had been approved. The last of the sealed sections would be opened, renovated, and turned into proper living spaces. "Maya," he said, "remember when you stole my watch?" She blushed. "I think about it every day. I was so scared and desperate back then." "That act of desperation changed everything," Carter mused. "Not just for you and Zane, but for thousands of others. Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest actions." They walked together to the center's observation deck. The Martian sunset painted the sky in shades of red and gold. Below them, the lights of the colony twinkled, not just in the upper levels now, but throughout the former hidden sections, all of them bright and alive. Maya pulled something from her pocket, the original quantum chronometer, now retired from medical service. "I think it's time I returned this properly." Carter smiled and shook his head. Keep it. Let it remind you of where you came from and where you're going. Besides, he checked the new watch on his wrist. I've got a better one now. This one's programmed to remind me to check the lower levels regularly. Never want to lose touch again. As they stood watching the sunset, Carter reflected on how a simple chase after a stolen watch had led to such profound changes. The colony was stronger now, more unified. The hidden people were hidden no more. Maya held her brother's hand and looked out at the Mars they had helped create. A Mars where no child had to steal to save their sibling, where no communities had to hide in the shadows, where everyone had a chance to reach for the stars. Thank you, she said quietly, for chasing me that day. Carter put a hand on her shoulder. Thank you for running. Sometimes we all need someone to make us run in the right direction. As night fell over Mars Colony, the lights below seemed to shine brighter than ever before, a beacon of hope for anyone who needed a new home among the stars.